Michael Jordan personally called Stephen A. Smith on the phone, not to promote a product, not for an interview, to argue about NASCAR. And after Jordan made his case, after one of the most recognized athletes in human history sat on the other end of that phone and explained why NASCAR drivers deserve to be called athletes, Smith's response was this. Smith said, "Michael Jordan, I argued with him, because that is how I feel. I am being honest, that is how I feel. That is all. It is not a crime." He did not move an inch. This video is the full story of what Stephen A. Smith said, why the entire NASCAR world responded, what Michael Jordan did about it, and most importantly, what the actual facts say about whether NASCAR drivers are athletes or not. Because this debate deserves a real answer, not just noise. Let's go back to where this started. It was a regular episode of Stephen A. Smith's SiriusXM radio show, Mad Dog Sports Radio. The topic was the greatest athletes of all time. Smith was talking about LeBron James and his longevity. A caller phoned in and suggested NASCAR legend Richard Petty. Smith did not think about it very long. Smith said, "Come on, man. That don't count. You driving a car. I am being honest. It is a great sport. But come on, bro. Getting behind the wheel of a car is not the same. You can be behind the wheel of a car in your 60s and 70s for crying out loud." He then went further. Smith said, "A golfer is not an athlete. A NASCAR driver is not an athlete. They are skilled players, they are elite at what they do. But athletes? Athletes? Are you kidding me? That last sentence? Are you kidding me?" is the one that lit the fuse. Within hours it was everywhere. NASCAR fans, drivers, analysts, and eventually one very, very famous NBA legend all had something to say. The response from inside the NASCAR garage was immediate. And it was not quiet. First, Kevin Harvick. For those who do not know, Harvick is a former NASCAR Cup Series champion with 58 career wins. He now works as an analyst for Fox Sports. Harvick said on his podcast, "If you do not know anything about racing, just keep your opinion to yourself. You should not have an opinion if you do not even know anything about a sport." And Harvick did not just give an opinion, he brought data. During his driving career, Harvick wore a Polar fitness watch during races to track his physical output. He has used that data in multiple interviews to show exactly what a NASCAR driver's body goes through. Then Joey Logano, three-time Cup champion, fired back directly at Smith, and Smith fired right back at Logano. Smith said, "Let me speak directly to Mr. Joey Logano. I do not know you from a can of paint." Smith then added, "Why cannot I just have an opinion about NASCAR? My television show has been #1 in the morning for 14 straight years. I am on television and radio and my career spans 30 years. Do I look like somebody that needs to be relevant? I am relevant." Then came Ryan Preece, a driver who has survived some of the most violent crashes in recent NASCAR history. Preece said, "I would love for him to go tumbling 13 times, have black eyes and show up next week doing what you gotta do." Front Row Motorsports, the team Preece drives for, went straight to Smith's Instagram direct messages. They offered him a ride in a stock car. Smith has not responded. Now here is where the story goes from interesting to genuinely remarkable. Michael Jordan, six-time NBA champion, widely considered the greatest basketball player in history, and co-owner of 23XI Racing alongside Denny Hamlin, personally called Stephen A. Smith. Not a tweet, not a statement through a publicist, an actual phone call. Smith revealed it on his own SiriusXM show the following Thursday. He said, "You know who wanted to correct me about the NASCAR thing? Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. I argued with him, because that is how I feel. I am being honest. That is how I feel. That is all. It is not a crime. That is what makes radio and sports talk." Smith described the conversation as, his word, spirited. And after speaking with the man who co-owns one of the hottest NASCAR teams in the sport right now, after Michael Jordan walked him through what Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace physically endure inside that car every single race weekend, Smith still did not change his position. Smith said, "I argued with him because that is how I feel. Jordan knows the numbers firsthand. His driver Tyler Reddick competes with a heart rate between 150 and 170 beats per minute. The cockpit temperature reaches 130 degrees Fahrenheit and above. Reddick burns up to 3,000 calories in a single race." Jordan made that case. Smith heard it and said no. Now let us step away from the opinions for a moment and look at what the actual data says. Because this debate does have a factual answer, and it is not even close. The American College of Sports Medicine has documented that NASCAR drivers routinely compete with heart rates between 160 and 180 beats per minute during a race. That is the same range as a basketball player sprinting down a court. Michigan State University's motorsports human performance expert David Ferguson has measured in car temperatures of up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the cockpit. Some teams have recorded 130 degrees and above. Drivers experience gravitational forces, called G-forces, of 3 to 4 times their own body weight in the corners. That is comparable to what fighter pilots and astronauts experience. In a race lasting 3 to 4 hours, with no timeouts, no substitutions, no water breaks, a driver can lose up to 7 pounds of body weight through sweat alone. Stephen A. Smith's argument is that if a person can do something in their 60s and 70s, it does not count as athletic. But here is the simple problem with that logic. A 60-year-old can still throw a baseball. A 60-year-old can still shoot a basketball. A 60-year-old can still lift weights. By Smith's own definition, those activities would also not qualify as athletic. His argument defeats itself. Bubba Wallace nearly fainted live on television after a race in Atlanta in 2022, losing consciousness twice while being interviewed post-race. Tyler Reddick once had to receive stomach-calming medicine through his car window during pit stops while competing while physically ill. These are not people driving to the grocery store. These are athletes operating at the edge of what a human body can handle. Smith's comments broke while the NASCAR garage was already assembled at Talladega Superspeedway for the Jack Links 500 weekend. On Saturday, April 26, reporters asked drivers in the bullpen availability session to respond. Some drivers gave sharp, focused answers, others were calmer. And some genuinely had never heard of Stephen A. Smith before. Todd Gilliland, a Cup Series driver, was asked what he thought of Smith's comments. His response was simple and honest. He did not know who Stephen A. Smith was. That moment alone tells you something. Smith built his argument around relevance and fame, and one of the athletes he was dismissing had no idea who he was. Denny Hamlin, who is not only a Cup Series driver, but co-owner of 23XI Racing alongside Michael Jordan, navigated the conversation carefully. But the frustration in the garage was real and widespread. Mike Joy, the veteran Fox Sports race broadcaster, did not stay quiet either. During the live television broadcast of the Jack Links 500, Joy said on air, earlier this week, a well-known online pundit said race car drivers are not athletes. I want to send him this sequence and ask him to think about it. Here is one of the most interesting parts of this whole story, and it came from inside the NBA itself. Cooper Flagg, the #1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, one of the most talked about young basketball players in the country, was at Texas Motor Speedway for the RETH 400 this past weekend. Reporters asked him about Stephen A. Smith's comments. Flagg said NASCAR drivers are definitely athletes and world-class ones. He said the G-forces and the heat inside the car were no joke, and that the experience gave him a whole new level of respect. One of Smith's own NBA rookies, a young man who lives in the world of elite athletics every single day, went to a NASCAR race and came away saying these drivers absolutely qualify as athletes. Smith has not commented on Flagg's response. Now, to be completely fair to Stephen A. Smith, let us actually engage with his argument instead of just dismissing it. His core point is about definition. In his view, the word athlete should be reserved for sports that involve what he sees as traditional physical confrontation: running, jumping, throwing, direct competition between bodies. He sees driving a car as a skill, a highly specialized skill, but not athletic in the same way as football or basketball. That is a legitimate philosophical position. People have debated the definition of athlete for decades. Chess grandmasters train their bodies. Esports competitors work with physical trainers. The question of where the word athlete begins and ends is genuinely not settled. Smith also said something that is worth acknowledging. He said drivers are elite at what they do. He never said NASCAR is not a sport. He never said the drivers are not skilled. He drew a line specifically around the word athlete. That distinction matters. He was not mocking the sport. He was disagreeing about a definition. However, and this is the key, when someone like Kevin Harvick presents actual physical fitness data, when medical research documents heart rates of 180 BPM and G-forces comparable to fighter pilots, the argument that driving is something a 70-year-old casually does stops holding up. Smith admitted on air that he does not know enough about the sport to fully understand what drivers go through. That admission is important. You cannot confidently draw a definitional line around something you self-admittedly do not understand. Here is the honest verdict. Stephen A. Smith is one of the most successful sports media personalities in history. His show has been #1 for 14 straight years. He is very good at what he does. But being good at sports media does not make you right about sports science. The physical evidence for NASCAR drivers qualifying as athletes is documented, measured, and confirmed by medical and sports science experts, not by fans or by rival broadcasters. Heart rates, core temperatures, G-forces, caloric burn, weight loss, reaction time demands, all of it is real, all of it is verified, and none of it was invented to win an argument. Michael Jordan called him. Kevin Harvick brought data. Ryan Preece brought personal experience. Cooper Flagg, an NBA rookie who actually showed up at a race, came away convinced. Smith heard all of it and said, "That is how I feel." When feelings override documented science, that is not a sports debate anymore. That is just stubbornness. NASCAR drivers are athletes. The numbers confirm it. The only question worth asking now is whether Stephen A. Smith will ever actually get in one of those cars, because Front Row Motorsports already offered him the seat. One question before you go. If Stephen A. Smith actually got in a NASCAR stock car and did a few laps at full speed, do you think he would change his mind? Drop your answer in the comments. Yes or no. And if you want the real story behind everything happening in NASCAR this season, not the fabricated drama, just the confirmed facts, hit that subscribe button. New video every week.